Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. It's time for the match preview. I'm Andrew Musgrove, joined as usual by John Gibson. Newcastle travel down to Anfield to face Liverpool on Wednesday. A Carabao Cup final rehearsal. Can Newcastle United set the tone with victory in the Northwest? John joins me less than 24 hours after Newcastle's victory over Nottingham Forest. Me and John bumped into each other in the car park, leaving St James's Park after that game. And John, you came over to me and you said that was a little bit crazy, wasn't it? And I think you summed it up absolutely perfectly.
Oh, it was wild. It was ridiculous. Jekyll and Hyde, nice and nasty, all in one game. We've had it all season, and but we've had the great games, beating Arsenal 3 times and winning at Man U and winning at Spurs, and then we've had the awful games, home to West Ham, etc., etc. The performance at Man City. We got all that in 1.5 hours. I mean, the first half, we gift them a goal to give them a start, and then we blow them away with 4 goals in 11 minutes. Come out for the second half, you're thinking, is it going to be 5 or 6 or maybe even 7? And it's 4-3, and we're desperate for the final whistle to go. I mean, it's absolutely wacky. I mean, I honestly don't know which Newcastle United I'm going to see when I go to see them now. I don't know which one's going to turn up. I mean, I then go for a cup of tea at half time because I don't know what's going to happen in the second half. It is ridiculous. I mean, I started covering Newcastle. I looked like Alan Jones, and now I look like a road map of GB. I've got that many lines through watching this lot. It's absolutely crazy, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was very up and down. I'm just wondering what you think Eddie Howe takes from that game against Nottingham Forest. Is it, look how great you guys were in the first half, take that into Anfield and you'll definitely be within a chance of leaving with something? Or is it you hit them hard and you say, lads, you cannot perform like you did in that second 45?
I think it's a bit of both. I mean, he admitted after the game, didn't he, that he was struggling to be positive immediately after the game. He said, I was struggling to feel positive. He said, it almost felt like a defeat, and I had to remind myself that we'd won. And he was absolutely spot on. I left the ground and I was quite depressed. And then I suddenly had to think in the car park after meeting you, yeah, we have got the 3 points. I mean, we talked at the end of the last podcast, Andrew, didn't we? And I forecast a win. And I got a win, but I certainly didn't forecast we'd be 4-1 up at half time. And I definitely didn't forecast we'd lose the second half 2-0. I mean, it was really crazy. And sadly, you know what? When you get these games of contrasting halves, they're better when they happen the other way around. Remember when we played Arsenal and we were 4-0 down at half time at St James's and we got a 4-4? You left the ground elated thinking you'd won. This time you left the ground depressed and said, if we if we play like we did in the first half, or if we play like we did for 11 minutes, we can cause a shock down at Liverpool. If we play like we did in the second half, they will kill us. So, what does he take out of it? And it's hard to know whether you go gentle or whether you go tough. He's got to do both because, what bothered me as much as anything, it wasn't just. I mean, the minute I don't know about you, Andrew, but the minute come out for a second half, you could sense it was going to be like that from the kickoff in the second half. You could sense they were back to being the passive side that they had been down at Manchester City. And I looked at them late in the game, and I'm thinking about people like Anthony Gordon, etc., etc. And they looked as if they can't last the full 90 minutes. They looked as if they play at the high tempo when they're at their best in the first half. They cannot sustain that for an hour and a half. And that is worrying because we are playing the best side in Europe on Wednesday night. No question about that. And then we're playing them again at Wembley. And we have got to be at our very, very best to have any chance at all.
I guess you have to look at the bigger picture with that, and that obviously doesn't help us in the preparation for Wednesday. But you are correct. In recent weeks, recent months, they have looked like a team that can maybe only do it for the first half, maybe an hour, which isn't great. But that comes with not introducing fresh faces into the squad, doesn't it? You know, we are now into the third, fourth window without any real additions that improve the first team. So it's probably not unexpected that that's the conclusion that we've drawn from the previous months, and hopefully in the summer with a bit more finance behind where Newcastle United can indeed add to the squad. But on Wednesday, John, we know how good Liverpool are, but they're not unbeatable, are they? We've seen in recent weeks Villa, Wolves, Everton. Okay, that's a derby, so it's a little bit of an anomaly. But, you know, they've all gone at Liverpool, and Liverpool have looked vulnerable at times. Yes, okay, they're still picking up points. Yes, they are arguably the best side in Europe right now. But this is not a game that is a foregone conclusion, is it? Or is it?
I'm desperate to say it certainly isn't. And I've got to believe that it certainly isn't, because anything else is to sell yourself and your club and your loyalty down the pan. Because, this is the nearest, this is a machine like Manchester City used to be, isn't it? I mean, without going into great detail of every stat, because it would terrify us to death and there would be a million of them. But they've only lost one out of 27 in the league. They've only lost 4 out of 42 in every single competition. And 3 of those were understandable. One was a dead rubber in Europe. One was when they put the reserves out at Plymouth. One was in the first leg of the League Cup against Spurs when they knew they had a second leg at home to come and swamped them 4-0. So 3 of the defeats were understandable and they were almost set up to have them. There was only the Forest 1-0 there that was a genuine defeat. So they don't get beaten. Yes, they get held. I mean, we held them 3-3 up here. They don't win automatically, but by Jove, and they have spells when they give you a chance, but by Jove. I mean, what we haven't got to dwell on, Andrew, is that we let goals in by the bucket load now. And what we have to dwell on is we can also score goals. So we've got to dwell on we can score goals, not on the fact that we let them in by a bucket load. And if we look for other positives, I think, in the small ones, in my opinion, but we've got to look at them, is that we have had wide men who are very much on form, Gordon and Jacob Murphy, although I didn't think it was his best game against Forest, but they're good. And their fullbacks defensively aren't great. They're both great on the ball, but they're not great defensively. And that showed at City. We've got to hope that we can get some joy wide. Newcastle at the best have a chance. They went to Arsenal and won. Newcastle at the best have a chance. At the worst, they're an apology for themselves, aren't they? It really is as extreme as that. And it's had me puzzled because the extremes are so extreme. And I tell you what, before the kickoff, I guarantee that Eddie Howe doesn't know which team if he's going to watch. I think he doesn't know which team he's going to watch the same as us. He just has fingers crossed. He does all, don't get me wrong, he does all the preparation correctly and he'll do everything on the training pitch correctly and he'll do everything correctly verbally. But come that kickoff, he doesn't know which team he's going to watch.
You're 100% correct. And we were quietly optimistic that they'd get something down at the Etihad against a Man City that have been so up and down, so off the pace. And obviously this game against Liverpool at Anfield, so different. And we should still, I think, be going into this with a little bit of optimism because Newcastle United, at the end of the day, they picked up 3 points against Forest. And okay, the second half wasn't brilliant, but the first half was. And I think it's still a great platform to build on. It's a lot easier going down Anfield with 3 points in your bag than having either drawn that game against Forest or, heaven forbid, lost it. But it's all about the mentality, isn't it? And which Newcastle United, as you say, is going to turn up? Is it going to be the Newcastle United that for this season has gone to places where they've had horrible records and there is no worse place to visit for Newcastle than Anfield? Get ready for this stat, John. I hope you don't fall off your chair with it. Since losing their first Premier League home game against Newcastle 2-0 in April 1994, Liverpool are unbeaten in the last 28 against the Magpies at Anfield. in the competition. Now, that is a horrendous stat, but Newcastle went to Old Trafford, they went to Tottenham, they went to Arsenal. Why can't they go to Anfield and get a win, or at least a draw? Let's be a bit positive, you know. Let's try and hope that they can bring that first half performance against Forest and take it to Anfield against Liverpool and upset the odds. Because I tell you what, if we go there and we're already defeated before kickoff and we're thinking, oh, you know, if we can keep the score down, it's a bonus, then we might as well not even head down the M1. We might as well just say, do you know what? Wave the white flag, here's the 3 points, and just move on, because I don't want to go down there with a defeatist attitude. I want to see them believe, because if they believe, that's half the battle.
Oh yeah, we've been talking about that for so long now, haven't we? You know, you've said, what can they do on the training pitch to put this right? And I said, talk to them. It's as much in the dressing room at the training ground, getting in between their ears, as it is tactically, because they just approach the games. You look and you think, oh dear. I mean, I expected them to beat Forest, and I said so on this podcast. So, I mean, us beating Forest wasn't a surprise to me. It was a surprise to me. It was 4-1 at half time. And it was in the final whistle was a surprise to me, but you know I was I should be elated, like you say, and for going into this game with 3 points taken against a team that's above us in the league. Let's not forget that. And Forest are still above us in the league. We should be going down there with a big confidence boost. I suggest it wasn't a confidence boost because of the last 45 minutes. That was a worry and a shock, because at 4-1 they were finished, man. We had also been talking, and I'd been stressing, in my opinion, that Forest this season had punched above their weight and were beginning to find out that life's tough. And they've only won 2 of the last 6 now, so they are beginning to find out life is tough. So we ought to have beaten them. But in the last 45 minutes, we were hanging on and we're playing at home. And that leaves a bit of a bad taste in the mouth and a little bit of a worry. And the last team you want, once you feel like that, is Liverpool. But you're right. I mean, we've got to cling on to. So it is up to the players to go down in the right frame of mind, not the fans. The fans can go down any way they like, because they'll still cheer Newcastle when the team comes out. Make no mistake about that. They'll care as passionately as ever. But they've got to give them reason to believe, and we've got to we've got to keep it going more than 45 minutes. I mean, if we do terrific in the first half down there, we'll not want it to be half time, will we? Because when they get in the dressing room, we don't know how they're going to come out again. That is the concern at the moment. And by the way, and I'm not trying to be depressed. I'm trying to be realistic, because there's nobody can care more about Newcastle United than you and I, who care as much as the 50,000 do, and all the rest as well. We're all the same. We adore our club. But if we don't go about our business the right way, Mo Salah will kill us. Don't worry about that. I mean, he's supposed to be a winger. He's supposed to be Anthony Gordon or Jacob Murphy. He's got 6 more goals this season than Haaland and Isak, who are the next 2 in line after him. He's got 6 more goals than them, and he's an outside left, an outside right, and he's got 6 more assists than anybody else in the Premier League. That is a match-winning guy all rolled into one, isn't it? And by the way, the 3-3 up here, you remember it. He was the difference. We never saw him in the first half. In the second half, he scored 2 and made 1 in the 3-3 draw. We have got to be on Blob, or he will kill us, because this is his season. I mean, sometimes with a great player, you still get them to have a special season. He's not a one-off, like say Chris Wood's goals were a one-off this season. He's not a one-off. He does it all the time. But this is better than anything else. And this is his season. And he will be the greatest. Of course, it's a team game. Of course, no one man can do it. But he will be the greatest asset when they're crowned champions that they've had this season. So we've got to watch that he doesn't kill us. And we've got to watch him, by the way, for 96 minutes. not for 45 or 30 or 20, because he'll kill you.
Yeah, indeed. And I just have to hope that the message that Eddie Howe is getting across to his players in the next few days is about being tighter in defence. And you guys watching and listening will be saying, Andrew, don't say it again, don't mention it again. But it's hard not to when you look at the goals they conceded against Nottingham Forest, when you look at the goals they conceded against Man City, and you can continue to go back many, many games. And just on the back of what John said there, if Newcastle defend like they did against Nottingham Forest in that second 45, and they do it in the same manner and allow Mo Salah the space and the time, or anyone else in that Liverpool starting 11, they will get punished. So for me, if I'm Eddie Howe, of course, you do your usual training, your usual setup, your usual tactics, but Isak, Gordon, Murphy, they're in a good place. Okay, Murphy had a bit of a shocker, a bit of a stinker against Nottingham Forest, and but for the large part, that if they get the ball, something's going to happen. It's at the back where I think they need extra work, and they need it drilled into them. You've got to be tighter. You can't be allowing your man to run unmarked into the box from set pieces. You can't be giving the wingers too much space. The ball needs to go into touch. Put it into touch. Don't try and be too clever, especially not around the likes of Mo Salah. And for me, that's where the focus has to be in the next couple of days. The defence, it has to improve because, again, too much space against Forest. And Forest didn't punish Newcastle, thankfully. Nearly did, but they didn't. Liverpool will.
Yeah, no question. And yes, as you rightly said, the second half, space and opportunities were given to Forest. But we give them it after 6 minutes, Andrew. The first goal, I mean, and you talk about defenders better get tighter. Jacob Murphy better stop giving away the ball in that position. I mean, the way he gave away that, he sacrificed that ball was fearsome. And, welcome back, Nick Pope. I mean, he didn't get his angles or anything right on the shot either. And all of a sudden, you're 1-0 down. Now we'll have a chance with somebody like Forest because they can be vulnerable at the back. We won't have too many chances against Liverpool at Anfield if we present them goals like that. And, what's going to be interesting, talking about the back four, there's no greater admirer of Lewis Hall than myself. This kid has got so much going for him. It's true. He's like a Rolls Royce when he goes forward. He might be chunky, but he's just beautiful and beautiful mover and enthusiastic. And he's got great, great, great vision. He sees things. He makes things happen. But everything I've said about him there is on the ball. Defensively, he's still learning. In my humble opinion, you can see that Lewis Hall was a midfielder as a kid who's got converted into fullback because he plays fullback like a midfielder. Now that is the biggest compliment you can give him when he's on the ball, but it's the biggest worry when he's defending. And if you've noticed this season, he found Mo Salah tough in the second half up here. In the first half, Mo Salah, he paces his games now, Mo. He's 32, for goodness sake. He's clever. He doesn't go bang, bang, bang and expect to do it for an hour and a half. He can't. He sits. And then, like a cobra, he strikes. And by the way, when he strikes, you can all feel it. There's no danger. And it was a learning curve for Hall the second half. Down at Man City, Savinho gave Hall a bad time. Give him a bad time because he's a quick winger who boom, boom, boom inside. And now we've got Salah again. So, but Hall is such a lovely kid and is such a talented kid. He knows he'll have worried. They'll have worked on him this week. If they've got any sense, they'll be doubling up on that situation. They'll be moving Burn just that little 2 yards further to the left, so that when Hall goes in on Salah, Burns just behind him, so that when Salah comes out to tackle, there's the big man waiting for him. They will be looking for that because Lewis needs help when he's playing this guy in tricky wingers. And as I say, Savinho, maybe the other guy got all the headlines because he got a hat trick, but Savinho tortured him at times, bless him. And Salah did up here. So that's going to be a concern, that position. They'll put Burn behind him, no question about that. Just took Burn a yard extra to his left. But this is something that's not just got to work, Andrew. It's got to work for an hour and a half.
Yeah, indeed. But I was really happy to see Lewis Hall. I think he was man of the match against Nottingham Forest.
He
The way he
was.
kept
He was.
both of the wingers quiet. So it was really good to see him bounce back to what was a shocking performance against Manchester City. I mean, looking at the team on Wednesday, John, and we are recording this on Monday afternoon. It'll come out on Tuesday morning ahead of Eddie Howe's press conference. So hopefully we'll get some updates from Eddie about certain players, but obviously we're talking ahead of that. I would like to see them go 5 at the back if Sven Botman is available. I don't think he will be, unfortunately, but even then, I mean, I'm looking, can you maybe put Emil Kraft as the third centre back? I just think Newcastle United would have an easier time of it if they go for the same formation that we saw against Arsenal. And we said this before the Man City game. That's what I want to see. But again, he didn't have the personnel to do it. And I just look at how Man City went, and I know you're talking Sven Botman is a classy defender. Emil Kraft, for all his endeavour and all his commitment and effort, he's not. He's a CB kind of level, but I still think he's never let anyone down. For me, I would try and play 5 at the back with him alongside Byrne and Share if Botman's not available, which we don't think he will be. And I think that's Newcastle's best way of curtailing what Liverpool bring to the table, which we know is goals, goals, goals.
Yeah, I can understand that reasoning totally, because that is the way we played against Arsenal, and it was truly magnificent in the way that it worked. And Eddie got plaudits coming out his ears for that one, and quite rightly so. I don't think Botman will make it. Though that's not based on any inside information. And I tell you one thing, Eddie won't give us any inside information on his press conference either. It'll be, we've got to check on him. We haven't seen him train today. We'll see what he's like. I mean, it was only last time, because it was blatantly going to be no chance against Forest, that we were told so. I think that he won't go, and they would give him a few more days and perhaps stick him into the cup, I think, to bring him back rather than that. But he could still do it with Kraft, as you well say. And it's worked before. We'll wait and see what happens. That's why you get the big dough, Eddie, because that's your decision, my friend, and we'll see how it all works out. And we can all be brilliant with hindsight, can't we? But that is a possibility, you're right. And then you sacrifice a guy out of the midfield, and you've only got your 2 blue chip midfielders in Tonali and Bruno anyway, because of Big Joe won't be ready for this one. So yes, that's a distinct possibility. And something's got to happen. Something's got to happen, and we've got to have everybody with us. We've not just got to get it right tactically. Should it be a 5? Should it be 4? We've not got to just cut out mistakes. We've not just got to have the right attitude. We've not just got to have the legs to keep going for an hour and a half. But we've got to we've got to let that lady hitch a lift with us, because to get a result down there, you need the only people that won down there were Nottingham Forest, and we've beaten them 3 times this season, but we're Nottingham Forest. And I tell you what, they had Lady Luck on their side. I'm not saying it wasn't deserved, but the goal came late on, almost too late for Liverpool to get annoyed and do something about it in terms of getting back in the game. And that's the best way to do them. But everything's going to have to go right. And by the way, it can, but everything's going to have to go right.
Yep, certainly so. And look, if Newcastle did play 5 at the back, which I don't think would happen, but if they did, I wouldn't be against Kieran Trippier coming back in, because I think it's much more suited to his style of playing at this time of his career. And then we look at the midfield 3. Sandro Tonali didn't start the game against Forest because of a hamstring issue. He did come off the bench, and you can just see, just oozes class. But it's whether, John, he risks Sandro Tonali on Wednesday, or whether he thinks, I'm going to keep him out again, maybe just for the first 45, and then bring him on if needed, if you can maybe protect the lead, hopefully, or indeed influence the game in Newcastle's favour if needed. I mean, what would you be doing? Are you in the camp that if he's fit enough to come on for the second 45, he's fit enough to to start?
That is a great theory. And he certainly didn't look in the second 45 as if he was gingerly carrying an injury. He just looked as if he'd been rested and had come out and was the old Tonali, which he wasn't at Manchester City. And we were so much better for him. So if you want to have any chance down there and he's fully fit, you've got to start him. If he's fully fit, and that's the crucial part. And we don't know how bad that is. We don't know what's gone on behind the scenes. We don't know if there was a little bit of afters after his performance at Man City and, Eddie took a stance. We don't know any of that. And we're not likely to find out, and that's fine. But if Tonali's anywhere near fit, goodness gracious me, you don't even bother discussing the matter. He plays because he is one of the blue chip lads. And if somebody's going to drop out of midfield, because of a 5, for example, if you went down that route, and I suspect that he might not. But if he did, then the 2 you'd want in midfield where there's extra bit of work, and I know one of the 5 steps into midfield when we have the ball. But then you'd want those 2 to be Bruno and Tonali, wouldn't you?
Yeah, indeed. But as you say, I don't think that's going to happen, despite my pleas to Eddie Howe. Let's say that Johnny sticks with that formation, and I'll give you 2 scenarios. One, that Sandro Tonali starts alongside Bruno. Who is the third midfielder? Is it Joe Willock? Is it Lewis Miley, or even Sean Longstaff?
If you're going on the flat back 4,
Yeah,
I think it's Lewis Miley.
yeah.
I mean, Sean Longstaff's as far back as the cow's tail. I mean, if ever there was official confirmation that they're 6th in the pecking order, it comes when we've got a home game and you've got to put in 2 midfielders who normally don't start, and those midfielders are Willock and Miley. You're 6 out of 6, aren't you? I mean, it's hard for the guy, and et cetera. But that's the message, and that's the message he will have got. And that is what might happen in the summer when somebody has to be sacrificed as part of the buying and selling routine. But yes, I would start with Miley ahead of Willock, who I thought did fine first off and then disappeared. Miley's a great talent, and he scored the best goal out of the 7, I thought, in the Forest match. And so I would go with Miley in there.
And if Tonali isn't fit, is it the same midfield 3 that started the game against Forest?
Yeah, it is, because why would you suddenly put in Longstaff for the toughest game of the season away to the champions elect if he wasn't good enough to start at home to Nottingham Forest? So yes, it would be Willock and Miley and Bruno, but by Joe, I tell you what, that makes you worry a little bit, doesn't it? Against their midfield powerhouses.
Yeah, indeed, it would be quite the battle. But stranger things have happened, and we have yet to mention Alexander Isak. 50 Premier League goals and 76 appearances, joins a prestigious list of names to have got to 50 below 76 games. And he loves playing against Liverpool. Mr. Virgil van Dijk does not like going up against him because Isak tends to win that battle. All right. He's lost 4 of the 5 Premier League games in which he's played against Liverpool, but he has scored 3 goals in that time with 1 assist. That puts Liverpool like the 10th, 8th, 9th team in the list of his teams he scored against. Tottenham are the team he most loves playing against with 5, as are Nottingham Forest. With 6 goals there, but yeah, him against Virgil van Dijk. I mean, we know how good Isak is, and he does seem to get the better of Van Dijk when he goes up against him.
And Van Dijk's a good player, so that tells you how good Isak is. But I mean, you and I don't need on this program, although I'm going to do it because I enjoy doing it. But we don't need to talk about how good Isak is because we say it so regularly. And I mean, I just drool at the mouth when I talk about Isak because this is a proper player. I mean, this is one of the rarities when you see somebody of his quality in the strip of your desire. You blinking enjoy it while you can. And I'm not suggesting when I say while you can that he's going to leave in the summer. I just mean while you can, because every footballer's life comes to an end. Um, but you enjoy it while you can. This guy's got everything. You've got strikers who have most things, like Alan Shearer's finishing was wonderful. Supermax pace was absolutely tremendous. Les Ferdinand's heading was terrific. But this guy's got it all. He's got everything because he has the silky midfield skills that Peter Beardsley had, and then he's got the finishing record of your top men, your top finishers like Shearer and in Supermarket, etc. He has got the lot, and we have to enjoy him, and we have to appreciate him, and we've got to make him feel loved, and he is loved because goodness gracious me, we don't want to see him disappear over the Tyne Bridge, never to come back, because that's the time when you pull the curtains down so you can't look out your window.
Indeed, but fingers crossed he can show up at Anfield and help Newcastle United to victory. Just looking, John, at the league table here, Newcastle United are fifth, 44 points. Man City in fourth with 44 points. Forest 3 points ahead on 47. You've got Bournemouth below on 43 and Chelsea on 43 and Aston Villa as well. They're in eighth on 42. And it's a full calendar of fixtures this midweek. You've got Villa versus Crystal Palace. So it's hard to call what that one is because Palace are in a good run of form. You have City versus Tottenham. Again, you would expect City to win that, but nothing's guaranteed with those two teams. Forest versus Arsenal. You're probably expecting Arsenal to win that, but it is at the City ground. But Chelsea versus Southampton on Tuesday, 8:15. I think that's probably a guaranteed victory for Chelsea. And it puts importance on this game against Liverpool, but I'm just wondering how you're looking at it. Is it this is Liverpool, we can't expect too much, or is this if Newcastle want to be a top 4, top 5 side, you've got to go down and show something?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we're never going to get a midweek like we had a weekend. I mean, at the weekend, Arsenal, Bournemouth, Man City, Chelsea, Fulham, and of course Forest all lost. All lost. What an opportunity that was for us, wasn't it? We're not going to get as wonderful results this midweek as we had at the weekend. I tell you what was interesting, and I got to think about it after the City game, while I was still bemused and lying in a darkened room with a cold towel over my forehead. I got to thinking, Gibbo, supposing we were only allowed to win one of the two games we have against Liverpool this season, which is Anfield and then Wembley. Which one would you want us to win? Now, and I'll explain why when I give my answer. The one I would want us to win is Wembley. And the reason for that is quite simple. We can lose with dignity at Anfield and still recover and make the Champions League. That is fact. That is a fact. That can be done. If we lose the Carabao Cup final, there's no second chance. You've blown yet another opportunity to have your first trophy in 70 years. Now, if I want the Champions League and the trophy, and I've said all season that's what I want out of this season, and why can't we have that? Then we've got to win the Carabao Cup and get beat with dignity, say 2-1 or whatever. I'm not suggesting I want that to happen. I want we to win both. But we can do that and still make the Champions League. If we don't get the result of Wembley, we can't win a trophy at Wembley. We've got to go back and try to do it in the FA Cup. So it's a difficult one, Andrew, isn't it? But that I was just thinking of it to myself because, to win one out of two, it'd be quite good to actually beat Liverpool in one of those two games would be quite good. I might accept that. Because we could lose them both. And I just thought, which? And then I tried to think why I wanted it. And that's why, because we could still make the Champions League and we can win the League Cup.
Yeah, I think everyone would take the League Cup, and hopefully Newcastle United can still make the top four. Just a reminder, guys, that this episode is sponsored by NordVPN. Please do hit the link in the podcast description box to take advantage of a very exclusive offer for our viewers and listeners of the Everything is Black and White podcast. You can get your plan for as little as £2.22 per month. You'll have a 30-day money-back guarantee as well if you're not impressed, but you will be impressed because it is a brilliant product. I've got it on my devices. It keeps me protected when I'm out and about, and you're also supporting the podcast. So do please sign up. John, penultimate question then. With the League Cup in the in view, how important is this game in terms of setting the tone for what's to come for the final? Because you do not want to go to Anfield and lose badly. If you lose, you want to lose with a little something about you, don't you? Because if you lose badly, no matter how much you try, you will be thinking about that defeat in the build-up in the days before, and probably as you step onto the turf, maybe at Wembley. So at the very least, you need to put in a decent performance and
Oh,
not be embarrassed.
huge, huge. Because, by the way, if we were embarrassed at Anfield, and heaven forbid, if we were, the press, and I'm talking about the national press down in London, etc., in the week leading up the League Cup final, would just chunt on about it every day. The players wouldn't be able to avoid the fact that that would be rammed down their throat, and it would be a psychological blow to us, not necessarily now, but in the days leading up to Wembley. It would prey on minds, and even more so, it would prey on their mind. They would be saying, listen, we aren't going to get complacent. We've took them up big time and we'll tuck them up again and put them to bed. No danger. We do not need that. It is absolutely crucial that doesn't happen. And if we produce a good performance down there, which may bring a draw, and it may even bring a win. But if the performance is good, we can look and say, hey, they couldn't win at St James's Park. We've gone to Anfield and put on a performance. And this third meeting isn't back at Anfield, it's on a neutral ground. So they haven't got the home advantage, and we have as many fans as they have down there. So it will have a huge impact on the final. Will what happens at Anfield?
Right then, what is going to happen at Anfield on Wednesday?
I knew this moment was going to come. I've got to be honest because that's what we're paid to be. Of course, my heart says that Newcastle can win and may win or may get a draw. And by the way, a draw would feel like a win in lots of ways. I've got to say that. If we draw at Anfield, it would feel like a win. Uh, I've got to be truthful. I don't think we will. I mean, we're bound to lose some games this season, and we've lost far too many already. But I haven't forecast many of them because I've normally forecast that we'd win. When we've lost against West Ham up here, and Brighton up here, and everybody else, and Man City down there, I can't see anything but us losing. But what I want us to do is lose narrowly, respectably, and with dignity.
Yeah, well, I'm going to go for a narrow victory for Newcastle United, and I'll tell you for why.
Or a draw with Forest at home and not a win. But you think we could only draw with Forest, but you think we're going to go down there and win?
I'll tell you for why, okay?
Good.
Because I think this is different to the Man City game. I think a lot of people, as we said, expected Newcastle to go there and get something. I don't think anyone expects it here. And I actually think that plays into Newcastle's hands. Annoying and as frustrating as it is that Newcastle United still thrive with that underdog mentality, because that's not what you want as a big team, as a club going for top four and the title in the future. You don't want to be the underdog, but I think that's when Newcastle United are right now. It still works for Eddie Howe in certain games, and I can see it working on Wednesday. I really can. Just a shock for Liverpool, a shock to the bookies, a shock to you, a shock to everyone. But I just think the fact that the majority of people are expecting Liverpool to do what they've done to nearly every other side this season plays into Newcastle's hands. And if they can just find the right mentality, if everything clicks for them on the day, they can go there and they can give a good account of themselves and they can pick up victory. So I'm betting on the underdog mentality being seized upon by Newcastle United and handing Liverpool their second defeat of the season. I can see your face, John, but I'm just being honest like you. That's where my head's at the moment. I might regret it come 10:15 on Wednesday evening, but that's my prediction. A 2-1 victory for Newcastle at Anfield on Wednesday.
Well, that's terrific. And I will look forward to talking to you on Thursday and congratulating you on being right. And I'll never be more thrilled to bits for me to be wrong and you to be right than if that scoreline turns out to be what you say it's going to be. All I can think of is that against Nottingham Forest at half time, you went to the toilet and you got locked in and you didn't come out until the final whistle because you had to climb over the top of the toilet door. And therefore, you thought we'd won 4-1 with a scintillating 4 goals in 11 minutes. And that's a great thing. I hope you're right. We've got to, the players have got to cling to that. They've got to believe or they're dead in the water. Unfortunately, I've seen too many horrible things too often this season. I've seen some wonderful things this season, but I've seen too many awful things. I've seen Jekyll and I've seen Hyde. I've seen Mr. Nice and I've seen Mr. Nasty. And this worries me because if there is a side to exploit it, it's Liverpool.
Well, let's see what happens. Thank you as always, John, for providing the match preview. And as John says there, we'll be back on Thursday, looking ahead to Brighton in the FA Cup, but hopefully also talking about 3 points for Newcastle United down at Anfield. Please do give the video a thumbs up, hit subscribe as well. Leave us a rating and review on the podcast only channel, and click that link in the podcast description box as well for your very special NordVPN plan. And we will see you guys on Thursday. Thank you very much for tuning in.